The body that manages the quality assurance process of our educational exams, Umalusi, says it now believes the education system is ready to go ahead with this year's Matric exams. You can imagine the problems for the education system this year. They've had less money to do the same job they did last year. There's been a pandemic. And then there was that incident last year when some students in a very small area were able to see some of the questions for a maths exam and a physical science exam just a couple of hours before the actual exam started. Dr. Mafu Rakometsi is the Chief Executive Officer of Umalusi. Dr. Rakometsi, good afternoon to you and thank you for your time. This is a very complicated process to make sure that everything's ready. There's a lot to check before you can say the basic education department is ready for the exams. How have you conducted this process to come to the conclusion that we are ready?
We check the state of readiness of the Department of Education, and there are a number of elements that we check. First of all, we check that their management system is up to speed. We check that they have properly registered the candidates. We check that they have done school-based assessment. We check that the printing and packaging of question papers has happened properly, and also that there is a plan for the distribution of question papers. We also check that the marker selection and appointment has been done according to policy. We also check that the capturing system that the department is going to use to capture the marks of the students is also according to the prescribed policy and standards.
Okay, and then, I mean, the obvious question, and you know this, I mean, you addressed it in your statement, is how do we make sure that what happened last year doesn't happen again, that leaking of the exams, very unfortunate incident. Are you confident that can't happen again this year?
One can say the system is as strong as the people who work in it. And we would say the department has put measures in place to ensure that this does not happen. However, with the level of commitment that the staff in examinations have, there can be an individual who spoils it all for us. So there can be no guarantees. However, the department has put systems in place to ensure that we don't have a recurrence of this.
I mean, the problem was at a private printing company, and that's the problem, is that, I mean, we're not, you know, government and the education department aren't in the printing business. They employ people to do this. That's what makes it tough.
That is what makes it difficult because, as you'll observe, this is a very big operation that the department alone cannot execute without engaging private entities. So it is in the process of engaging those other private entities that mistakes could happen. The department has given us an assurance that where they engage private entities, they get double reassurances that will not have a recurrence of what happened last year.
There have been big budget cuts for the education department, I mean for all departments because of the pandemic. Has that made a difference to what the education department has been able to do? And, I mean, have those budget cuts affected you as well?
Well, there have been budget cuts. However, examinations being a delicate part of the system, the budgets of examinations have not been compromised in any way because we realize that the system stands and falls by the examination system that it runs.
Right, I'm with you. One of the problems we've had is that during the pandemic, things have got harder and harder for children at school. Let me just explain what I mean. You know this better than I do, I'm sure, Dr. Rakometsi. But last year, the Matrics who wrote Matric had only had to live with the pandemic for about 8 to 9 months of their school year. The people who are writing the Matric this year, because the pandemic started last year, have actually had, well, probably 18 months of the pandemic, if you see what I mean. In other words, they've probably had less time in school than last year's Matrics. Do you think that is going to have an impact? Now, you can't predict what the results will be, but I can ask you this. Is that leading to a decision around changing the standards that you will accept on the quality of the paper and the quality of the marks?
The impact this time around is quite telling. To have schooling disrupted for 2 consecutive years is something that is huge and heavy for the system. However, it has been the position of Umalusi as a quality assurance body, as the vanguard of quality in this country, that it is not in the interest of this country to compromise standards in any way because of an unusual situation that we face in a particular year. It is going to be very difficult for our students because unlike the candidates of last year, like you rightly put it, they have not only missed 1 year, they've missed 2 years. However, there is no way in which we are going to compromise standards. This position was also put at a conference that I attended and addressed, an international conference, that with South Africa, we did not compromise standards. And the colleagues the world over applauded South Africa for taking that position.
Are you expecting fewer matrics to actually write this year compared to last year because we've had such a high dropout rate during the pandemic?
No, the numbers are quite huge. The total number of candidates who are going to write the NSC this year is 958,190. It's quite a big number. It compares favorably with the figures of last year.
That's probably quite good news, actually, for the whole country to hear that hasn't had an impact on that. So you're confident at this stage, despite the pandemic, despite everything, despite the problem at last year, you sound pretty confident.
I am very confident. This shows the resilience of our education system and the resilience of our students, that even with the challenges of the pandemic, they have chosen to soldier on, and they have not opted out of the system. And we have to just applaud everybody for this, the teachers, the parents, and the learners, and the community as a whole, and the officials of the department, that they have worked hard despite all the kind of hardships that the system is facing.
Dr. Mafu Rakometsi, thank you, Chief Executive Officer of the quality assurance body Umalusi. I hope you get some sleep, sir, between now and Christmas, but I imagine you won't get a huge amount. So thank you very much indeed for your time.